Good morning, folks. We are back. Had to restart the stream this morning, some technical difficulties, but here we are, and coffee in hand. So today's going to be a little different, taking a departure from the usual. So what's going to be going on today is kind of sharing some things. So it's kind of a strange day for me because the well today's I was not planning on doing a stream today. Today was going to be a day that I would take away because of a death in the family, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit and just sort of get into some things with it, because that's what's on my mind. So I had planned on going to some services and funeral today, and I changed my mind kind of at the last minute about it. And I want to talk about that decision and the stuff surrounding it. So for those who don't know me, issues of family are things that kind of stick with me pretty hard. There's some things I'm going to share that if you're talking to me for more than 30 minutes, you're probably going to hear some reference to some of it. And that's because I have this sort of approach to things where I'm very open about about certain parts of my family's past, about my past. And at the core of that is that I was adopted. And so that figures very prominently into pretty much everything for me. It just, there's no way it can't have a massive influence on everything moving forward. When you're an adopted kid, you always live with that, what's the word? There are questions and connotations that places on things that are there forever, and you always have to deal with that. Now, normally, a lot of adopted kids that I've known, a lot of people I've known who've been adopted, have no real connection to their biological family. And I would say that a lot of times, from my perspective, that's quite often for the best. There are plenty of times when, frankly, I almost wish my dad had chosen differently than to share with me things that he shared. There are other times when I wish he had chosen differently to share more with me than he shared. As it stands, what I learned about myself growing up and who I come from was a very minimal amount of information. I think because I looked really different than my biological father, I could not pass for his biological child. There was just no way. I think that alone kind of played with his decision making. He was a very small man, and I am not. I was bigger than him when I was like 11. Like, it was silly. It was really silly. So the death that happened in the family was in my biological family. It was my uncle, Paul Linden. And I've seen the notices about him and things and stuff that talked about his life. And Um, so I only ever met him once before. I've literally met him once in my life that I can recall. Supposedly, at some point when I was a baby, I might have been in the care of him and his wife. I don't know. I really don't know. Um, Before my adoption, there may have been a time when myself and my brothers were with him, and I'm not sure. Um, and that's just one of many things that just leaves these questions. Um, I've always wondered, if you're family and you had us, why did you why didn't you keep us? Why didn't you keep me and my brothers together? Um, why? Um, so there's a ton of questions about that frankly I know will never be answered. And that's one of many situations in my origin story that that I know will never have an answer. That is something I live with all the time. Is the amount of things in my past or in the past that led to my existence. Um, so many things are conjecture. So many things that I've found out through the years are hearsay, and it's you don't know. You don't know. Um, I preface everything with the fact that I had a father, my adopted father, who um, I talk about all the time. He's always on my mind. And he was a great man. He's a great man. He was incredible. He loved me. He was good to me. And I attribute any good thing I do in this world to him. My biological family, let's just call it like I see it, was a damn mess. Damn mess. In every sense that I can find. Just a mess on top of a mess. Um, my understanding is there's a lot of, well, let me back up. I grew up with my adoptive father let me know right from the get-go that I was adopted. Like I said, I think I obviously was not his biological kid. There was no mistaking that. It's hilarious. When I was little, it's like I was darker skinned when I was little, and I had like my hair was my hair changed color like 3 times in my life. It went from red when I was born to being like cold black for a while when I was a little kid. And fun fact, when I was a little kid, there were people around who thought that my dad had gone to Cherokee, North Carolina, and adopted an Indian baby. And they used to say some things that I won't get into that, but it really pissed him off. you know, People would so there was some stuff that just really irritated him. That people would be such jerks. Um, you know, I can remember one time when I was little, somebody he had a little country store, and I was playing on the floor, and somebody said, when you gonna when you gonna have your little Indian baby get over there and sweep the floors? And he was like, "Don't you ever use that kind of language in my store? Don't you ever say something like that here again? Get out! You are not welcome." That kind of thing. And so it was really weird. It's a weird marker to have in my memory. Um, because it's like you grow up and I don't know. It's like I grew up and hair color changed, skin colors fucking modulate over time. I don't know, just it's just weird the things that happen. But I know it's so weird. It's so weird not knowing so many things and then finding out things as you get older. So I was raised knowing I had three older brothers. Um, I was raised knowing them personally because man would go find them and bring them together, and people would let us hang out together and stuff. So it was very strange to be adopted, but still have a connection of some sort to your biological family, but a very tenuous connection at best. So this uncle passed away. A part of me, I have a brother who's named after him, um, and a part of me really wanted to go. And I thought long and hard about it. The only time I've ever spoken, certainly as an adult, certainly as anything other than a baby, to this man, was at a service, a funerary service that I had put together when one of my older brothers died just a few years ago. And this was a brother who, as I said, I was raised, my brother Paul and I, we were both adopted. Our oldest brother was adopted after spending a number of years in the system. My brother John spent his whole childhood in the system. And I was raised knowing all of them, occasionally getting to see them, all that stuff. And, I had quite a few, quite a few fantasies built up as a little kid about my big brothers. And as most childhood fantasies go, as you get older, you learn truths that kind of spoil the fantasies. And as an aside, I think it's kind of an important thing. Something I've learned along the way is that those fantasies are still important even after they're spoiled, and it's good to be able to reach back to those and remember what you wished. Sometimes it's better to hold on to what you wished for out of someone than what they actually were. But all that to say, fast forward many, many years and many, many stories that maybe one day I'll tell somewhere. I don't know. And my brother died, and the care of his services was left to me. And so I did my best with that. And for the first time in my memory, I met my Uncle Paul. I have heard so many different things about my biological father's family. I have no idea. There's lots of stories that I have no idea if they're true or not. There's lots of stories that I know are true. There's some things that I look at and think, oh my God. um, and I'm sure there's plenty of things I don't know that would be interesting or whatever. But the thing is, I didn't grow up with them. I was taken away from them. I was taken away from my biological father and my mother. I didn't have them. Who I had was a man named Henry Garner. And I had all of the things that were attached to him. A whole lot of good. There were some ills, but a whole lot of good. And when I think about going to a funeral, someone I've only met once, an uncle who I never knew, who the only time I ever met them was at a funeral I led for a brother. it leaves me with a strange feeling. I have often wondered why my father's family didn't do more to keep me and my brothers together. I will probably always wonder those things because I doubt I'm going to get any answers from anyone. And at this point, I really don't care. It just doesn't change anything. I was blessed. I was lucky. You know, some of the things that I understand about my biological father, I don't know, from what I understand, I was probably lucky to not be raised by him. As far as my uncles go, I don't know them well enough to say one way or another. I just know things that I've heard and things that trickled down to me through my oldest brothers, particularly John, the one who died. Things that trickled down to me through the years as he tried to connect with people and all that sort of thing. And you know, I've from a distance saw my brothers try to connect with one family or another, whether it was our father's family or our mother's family. Saw that just be what it was. Um, you know, so here in about 5 minutes, the services for my Uncle Paul Linden will start. And I won't be there. And it's not a slight on him. It's not even a slight. It's not a slight on the family. It's not a slight on anyone. I have my feelings, but I can safely say I have moved on with a life that I'm proud of. And because of that, I bear them no ill. I have, through whatever decisions or mistakes either family, my father's or my mother's, made, all of those things left me with the man who adopted me. As a note, I don't talk about my adopted mother a whole lot because there were issues. But my father, Henry Gordon Garner, for whatever circumstances, and I know some of them, led my biological family to give us up. Whatever feelings I may have about those circumstances, those decisions, they genuinely don't matter. What matters in my life is that they culminated in me being adopted by a great man. And that was worth more than anything either of those families, I think, could have ever given me. The man who adopted me saw my natural abilities. He saw my intelligence. He saw my talents. And he encouraged them. He didn't just encourage them, he pushed them. You know, he pushed me to excel and to grow and to thrive. Can't was not in my vocabulary because of that man. You know, he would say things like, you know, it doesn't matter what you came from, it just matters where you're going. And it's true. It's true. It is 100% true. So today, as my family, my biological family, lays an uncle to rest, who apparently did some great things in his life. I know he was in the Navy. He's going out with full military honors. That's great. I can respect all that. I can honor all that, and I can offer my condolences to all of them. You know, when the list of names of survivors, you know, when these reports come out, they say so and so passed away, survived by, you know, wife, child, so on and so forth, and they list out a bunch of the family. You know, it's conspicuous to me how there are 4 boys who are not listed. We're not included. We're not part of that. So we were ejected from all of that a long time ago. And well, that's fine. You know, that's fine. I don't feel that much of a connection there, even when I see photos and things that maybe bear resemblances and things like that. I don't feel that. What I feel is it's very strange. It's not a connection to family like that. And you know, the nature of adoption, and the nature of what all happened with me and my brothers is something that I know thoroughly messed up any of those connections I would ever have. So it's funny. This makes me think, though, there have been others from my biological family die. And every time one of them passes, all I can think about is Henry Garner, the man who adopted me. Because those people and their decisions, their failures, enabled him to choose me. And so biology may have made me a product of their genetics. That's fine. You know, we don't get to choose our biology. As much as many people would like to have everything these days be about choices and you can be this or be that, change who you are, change whatever. We don't get to pick those things. You don't get to pick your parents. But sometimes your parents get to pick you. Sometimes your family picks you. So, whenever someone like this from my biological family dies, it always reminds me. Henry used to say, "Son, you're special. And not because of who you were born to. You're special because you were chosen." He used to tell me I didn't have to go get you. You know, he'd say, he'd say I didn't have to go get you. I mean, he was an older man. He was 55 years old when he adopted me. I didn't have to go get you, but I saw you and I knew I wanted you. So I was chosen, and that's powerful. You know, the conditions of my upbringing, the lessons I learned from that man, the love I felt from that man, the honor I have for him, all start with a choice. Choice. I was valuable enough to him. He saw enough potential to pick me and raise me. Whereas another family, or two families, if you want to view it that way, ejected me and my brothers. This man chose me. He saw what they couldn't see. And learning things I've learned about those families now, and I'm sure they're perfectly fine people in the course of both of them. I know some of them. I know an uncle on my mother's side who I think is a great guy. I've known a couple of people on my father's side who I'm like, okay, they're okay. They're all right. But, you know, the quality of a man who it was who picked me, unmatched by anyone I've ever met. I can't think of anyone who could touch that man. So when a passing like this happens, it always brings me back to my dad, to Henry Garner, and it always brings me back to the thought of having been chosen, how important that is, how it affected me, how everything he taught me affected me. It brings to mind that he never wanted me to have any ill will toward my mother or father's families. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to let go of a lot of that. And I really don't think there's much of that left. Occasional confusion, maybe some different, questions and things here and there, but it's mostly gone. And right about now, funeral home doors are opening for folks who knew my uncle to come in. And, my heart's with them in a way. Losing someone is hard. I have a cousin, his son, who, my heart goes out to you. I lost Henry when I was 17 years old. I know what it's like to lose a father. It's hard. So, yeah. But I chose to stay home today. I chose not to go to this because I feel like a person should know their limits, first off. And today is a man's funeral. And that day should be for him and his family. That's an important distinction. I have a couple of cousins who I talk to from time to time, and I'm cool with them. But I don't feel the kind of connection that should necessitate showing up. I don't feel as though my presence there would be much of anything other than a question. I feel like there'd be a lot of people saying, who's this guy? He looks like family. It doesn't sound like family. What's he doing here? I wonder if, looking back, that's how it always was. Sometimes I wonder if when I was born, that's not the thought. Well, here's this person, but are they really one of us? Ah, it's very easy to let my mind go down a rabbit hole of really dark thoughts with a lot of that stuff. My brother Paul, this man's namesake, my brother Paul and I talk about this kind of stuff from time to time. We talked about it a lot growing up. We grew up in the same town. Oddly enough, uh, the man who adopted the family who adopted Paul, his adoptive father was my adoptive father's cousin. So, as the joke I've made my whole life goes, only in Kentucky could I be my brother's cousin. I'm sorry, if y'all ain't from Kentucky, you don't get to make that joke. but, so, so yeah, I tried at one point, I moved my entire family to another city, hours away, when I found my biological mother. I stayed there for about a year trying to help take care of her. She was in an awful state. Um, couldn't recognize people most of the time. She had such problems. I mean, it literally didn't matter when we left because she just didn't know much of anything. It's very strange. Maybe it's something I'll talk about someday, but I try not. I don't get into that much because it was painful. The you know, I bring that up because it's a time when I tried to reach out to family, to biological family, tried to rebuild connections, maybe learn things, maybe just have something there. And it was made very clear to me that the family I have connections with are they're few. I loved my brother John, and he died, but I loved him because he was in my life growing up. He was there. Not a lot. Not like a brother who lives with you. Not like that. But you know, my father Henry was able to find him and bring him to spend time with me. Henry would get him and Paul together with me on a regular basis. Uh, when I was very small, there were a couple of times I can recall all three of my older brothers being with us, but eventually the oldest was adopted and moved far away. Um, and the that didn't end up. Let's just say he didn't go the way that he should have. And you know, in adulthood, when you'd imagine people would come back together, once they have their own agency and they're capable of making adult decisions and seeking out people lost to them and all that. It was John who brought the four of us together as adults after many many years apart, and it was always John who tried to bring us together, and then we lost him. So I believe that was the end of something really special. And I haven't spoken publicly about this. I don't know why I should. I mean, it's like I'm really not I'm really nobody, so I don't know why it's like a thing. But I feel like I want to document some of this stuff somehow, and this is a good way to do it. So I'm gonna ramble a little bit. Um, you know, Paul and I, my brother Paul and I, We were raised in the same town. We were, um, same county, went to the same schools. We were in school together. He's 3 years older than me, so there was an interesting dynamic just from that age. We knew each other's families, adopted families. We knew we were adopted. We knew we were cousins by adoption and brothers by birth. And we, Paul and I always had this amazing bond, and that was awesome. And Paul, if you're watching this, brother, I love you. Always have, always will, you crazy bastard. But John was just a couple counties away through most of his time growing up, being bounced through the foster system of Kentucky. And there are stories that I can tell about that foster system that would just chill you to the bone. If there's anything in this world that I have a profound heart for and understanding of, it's the plight of orphan children. Our foster system is garbage. Our methods of letting these kids into new homes, that there are thousands upon thousands of people out there good people who would absolutely take on children and give them wonderful homes, who can't because of stupidity in our system. Meanwhile, there are tons of people who the system gives their blessing to, who are utterly awful. Horrible, horrible things happen to kids in this system. I was 3 years old when I was adopted. I had been fostered for a time by the people who would eventually adopt me. But as the wisdom of government goes, I was bounced around for a while. I've heard stories from my older brothers who occasionally we would land in the same home together. So there were traumas, there were horror stories. But before I was old enough to be able to embed those stories in my brain as actual memories, Henry hunted me down. And his cousin Thomas, who adopted Paul. Together, those two men hunted us down in the system. And they made sure. They literally had to take their fight to get us boys all the way to the governor of Kentucky at the time. No joke. It's a wild story that I'll probably write it sometime. Thomas is still alive today too, and it warms my heart. There was a time when these families were fostering kids, that Thomas and his wife Jeanette, who's no longer with us, she actually died the same day as my brother John. Imagine that. Thomas and Jeanette had me for a while, along with Paul. They might have had some of our other brothers. I don't know. But I should ask him sometime. I think at one point they had all four of us. And, but the way the system works, or the way it worked then, I think still works now. Sometimes they just decide they're going to move the kids somewhere else. Who the hell knows why? Who knows why? Who knows why bureaucracy ever does a damn thing other than for its own strange purposes, which usually involve some form of greed. But, those two men, Thomas Anderson and Henry Gordon Garner, those two men spent a lot of money, far more money than Henry had. He was not a wealthy man. They put their money and their time and their effort into finding us boys and going all the way to the top of the government in Kentucky, going all the way to the governor to get things done to make sure that they could extract us from that system and give us a life. So, sharing all that's a little weird. I've never quite done it in this format before, but I don't know, maybe it's worthwhile. If anyone's watching this who's also been a foster kid, an adopted kid, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. There's a very strange sort of thing where I have found through the years as I've met other adopted kids that there's a connection that we have. You know, we're an extended family of lost children. But I've digressed enough into my own wormhole of a past. But it's all to provide context. So, some might think, oh, your uncle died. Why aren't you at the funeral? Why aren't you there? And I'd planned on going. I really had. I really thought, no, I should definitely go. But the more I thought about it, I thought, I would rather, I'd rather not. And I'd rather take the morning to document some things, talk about some things, possibly get some things off my chest with it. And it's not to disparage the man. It's really not. I don't know what his reasons were. I think, and that's the thing. There's questions. There's questions. Always questions. I think that he had me and my brothers at some point when I was a baby. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know for sure. And I honestly don't want to know for sure. Because if I find that out, if I found out right now, if someone contacted me and said, oh, yeah, he absolutely had you guys, then my gut reaction is going to be, well, why the hell did you give us up? Why? What was that for? Why? Why did you ditch us? Why did you make that choice? This guy who's got military honors, and it's like a councilman of the town he was in, all kinds of stuff. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, more power to you. I can respect all that stuff. So this guy who's supposed to be this great guy, it's like, if you had us, why? If you're this great guy, really? It certainly puts a chink in somebody's legacy for people to be able to look and say, yeah, you know, the guy pushed away these kids. And I'm not saying that he did that because I don't know. What I'm saying is, if I found that out, then that would necessarily color my thoughts toward the man. As it stands, I don't know. I can only entertain ideas. I know that if I went today, I'd find that out. I'd find that out for sure. And, well, in my uncle Paul Linden's death, there are things I found out about the man that I respect. I have deep respect for. I respect his military service. I respect his standing in the community there. I have to pair those with things I've heard that maybe aren't quite so good. I have to pair those with experiences I've had that were fallout from things surrounding various aspects of my father's family. Things that I frankly just don't want to talk about on camera. But If I found out, if I went today and during this service found out that this guy, in fact, had been part of pushing us away. I mean, just by virtue of having been an uncle, I mean, there's always going to be an aspect of that there. It's like, okay, well, okay, if he didn't have us, he still, who doesn't step up and take care of their brother's children? Who? Who doesn't do that? But whatever. If he never did it, then I can at least say, well, okay, he had his own family, whatever. He justified some things. It's still a little sus to me, but whatever. But if I found out for sure that the guy actually had us, and then, you know, that a complete stranger fought, that two complete strangers fought for me and my brother, where our biological family did not, that's profound. If I found out that he had us, then that's how that would be framed in my mind, and I don't want that. I would rather when I see a picture of the man go by in social media, I would rather recall the good things that I read and think, okay, someone in that family was a good man. So that's what I have to offer the family on this day. That's what I have to offer myself. This is what I have to say about it. Is that, there are these things. I don't need to know them. I don't want to know them. In fact, I said early in this that I often wish my father, Henry, had not told me lots of things that he did, because then I wouldn't have these questions. I'd have questions, but they'd be different questions. So I don't want to know. I want to. I would like to find it in myself to be gracious enough to allow a man to pass in the best light possible. And so that's what I'm doing. I know that if I went, I would no longer have that choice. So I'm staying here. And my father kept Lyndon as my middle name. The uncle who died, Paul Lyndon. But I'm not a Lyndon. My genetics may be, but I was raised by Henry Garner. So that's enough. That's enough. So, all that said, you know, someone important to me said to me, "You realize funerals aren't for the dead, they're for you." That's what got me thinking about staying home today instead of going. Because I don't need to go to that funeral. I don't need it. Let those who need it be there. What I need is to be able to reflect on the context, connotations of all the things that this biological uncle was privy to and part of. I need to be able to think about stories I've heard that may or may not be true, that may or may not have involved whoever. And what I need as a form of closure to the ending of that uncle's life is this documentation, this examination of sorts of my own feelings. Who knows? Maybe sometime I'll watch this, listen to it, and delete it. Who knows? Who knows? But I feel like, folks who kind of have come on this journey with me on this YouTube channel, as I've kind of turned it into lately, has been this journey of art and sharing things every morning and just talking about stuff. And there's a little series of videos I have called Headspace. Maybe I'll just cut some stuff from this and make it a Headspace video. Who knows? But even in the short time that I've been kind of more dedicated to this channel and doing things with it, there are some interesting folks who've come up who've gotten to know you. There are longtime friends who watch and hang out, really started hanging out with me just about every morning here. So I thought, I'm going to share this stuff. I'm going to share some of this stuff with you guys. There are other people in my life who mean a lot to me who might get something from this. But, yeah, to me, that's what funerals are for. It's what services like this are for. And, is getting that kind of closure, looking at all that unresolved stuff, what was, what could have been, what now won't be, or whatever will be in the fallout of things, and kind of assessing it, accepting it, and, using that as a stepping stone to move forward. So that's what I will do. I can't say that I will move forward with any real memories of this uncle, other than he was kind at my brother's funeral. He was kind to me, kind to my brother's children at that funeral. And if that's all I ever know of the man, or all I ever know of him for sure, there are stories, but they're uncorroborated. If that's all I ever know of the man, then I can accept that and say, well, okay, he was an all right uncle then, I guess. And I hope his immediate family, his son, the people that he immediately leaves behind, I wish them all the best. I hope they, I hope that they received everything they needed from him, and that, that in their loss, they're able to find comfort. So, yeah. As for myself, every loss from my biological family that happens just closes a door a little bit further. That had my father not told me the things he told me as a child, it's a door that not only would it have never been opened, I wouldn't have known it existed. So maybe it's better to just leave it behind as much as I can. It's like, think of it as there's a long, long hall. It's very dark. At the very end of it, 2 doors. One says Justice, one says Linden. And both of them are open. But typically it's only monsters that come out of them. So, different events happen, usually some kind of a death. And those doors creak shut just a little bit more. So, if this man happened to be something good that was hidden in that darkness, so be it. But for me, the door creaks shut just a little bit further. And one day, they'll be closed completely. And I don't need to go down that hall any further.